Happy Diwali, everyone. आप सबको दिवाली की one second. What is it? Oh, sorry. Happy New Year.
Varun, you're such a this is why you're a sasta Hrithik Roshan. Because you couldn't even pull like two
I
lines
know,
of acting
yeah.
off. What a
Ah,
please go practice. Should I
yes,
practice that in front of the
yes.
mirror
I will
six
go. I'll go
times?
to Anupam Kher's acting school
You
and learn
must.
acting. Yes,
You must. But
and then
what's
I
going
will
on,
say
man?
I care
Happy
about acting.
Acha, cool. Done, cool,
Done,
cool.
done, done. हो गया.
Happy 2023, brother.
Happy
Wow, we made it to
2023.
another year. Oh my god.
Yes. Although like it was a chill year, I have to say I've reached true uncledom because everybody in my house slept off around midnight, and I was bored and I didn't want to sleep, so I watched Kapil Sharma show.
What is wrong with you? Oh my God. Kapil Sharma,
Kapil Sharma show
bro,
on
but
Chakila is not a bad idea, is what I've realized.
by yourself.
No, but not by myself. For some time, then some friends were available, so then hung out. But
Oh,
for a
so
brief
you all
period when
watch
I was
Kapil
chilling by
Sharma
myself.
together.
No, no.
That's
Then I
great,
was
man.
then I
Love
shut it
your
off. Then I
friends.
shut it off. Then I shut it off.
Yeah, how was my New Year's? I obviously fell asleep at 10:30, as was expected from me. Not only did I fall asleep at 10:30, I fell asleep while watching Real Housewives of Miami, which
See,
was
this is called
basically like
being.
very on brand.
What is wrong with Kapil Sharma versus Real Housewives? It is the same
No,
thing.
they're both equally bad. Yeah, I'm
Ah,
making
fair
fun of
enough.
myself. Yeah,
Fair
I
enough. Fair
am
enough.
like I'm in your camp. I'm in your
Although this
camp.
Kapil
Except
Sharma
I
one, the reason I watched it and I found it very interesting is that the guests he calls for a New Year's
yeah.
Eve special are Zakir Khan, Kusha Kapila, Abhishek Upmanyu, and I forget the Bassi. I forget the first name of the. So you're calling digital first comedians for
How
the year
cool.
ender, and I thought that was Anubhav Bassi. And thank you, Jalasmi. Thank you, Vishnu. Sorry. And that is for me was the reason why I wanted to see it. Again, I feel
What
that when
is
you
Kapil Sharma's vibe like now? Because I'll tell you, I used to actually
same,
find his show really funny, but then became a little like
uh, he
misogynistic in the
has his
middle with his
days.
jokes.
I
Yeah.
feel with Kapil Sharma, it's a lot more about the gang around him. So when
Hmm.
everybody else who's is like this other comedians as part of the whole thing, when they're having a great day, it's a good show.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some like because sometimes you just my YouTube sometimes throws up one of those videos. I'm like, I want to watch this episode.
Hmm.
But he himself, I feel, isn't having as much fun as he used to. Maybe
Hmm.
because he wanted to become an actor that hasn't worked out for him, so he has to continue doing the show. Maybe, but I kind of feel like everybody else seems to having a lot more fun. Although this episode had many parts which was supremely funny, um, and uh,
Lovely.
and I think I saw one episode where this is guy who mimics Akshay Kumar song, and he sounds exactly like Akshay Kumar, and like bizarrely exact. So I thought I had to watch it. Imagine there can be one
That
more
sounds
Akshay Kumar.
great. That sounds great. Sasta Ritik Roshan,
Speaking of Akshay
Sasta
Kumar,
Akshay Kumar.
speaking of Akshay Kumar, Elon Musk became the first person in history to lose 200 billion.
There was
I
no
don't know why that is
correlation in
connected.
between the two, but I appreciate it. I appreciate
But
it.
Elon Musk is like that. He's a khiladi. He's jumping from company to company, and then like you don't know where those stunts will land.
Yeah, but this, I think, last 6 months have not been very good for him. But I will say this: I wouldn't bet against Mr. Elon
Never,
Musk.
never.
I mean, I won't put my money into him either, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't short, him. That said, I think there's a lot of competition heating up for Tesla at
Yeah,
large. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they had that first
yeah.
movers advantage, which has very clearly chipped away. But let's see how 2023 shapes up for Elon Musk and his never-ending little Twitter tantrums. He stopped that
Yes.
also. He's like
Ah,
a transformed man.
yeah, yeah. He
There was no
stopped that
like
now.
petty
And
party.
and have you read the news about who might be taking over as CEO? And there was this interesting.
You
Mm, no, I wouldn't take that job. I would not take. Maybe for the
you
money
wouldn't get that
briefly,
job
but no.
either. Just
If I
letting you
got
know,
you
putting it
said,
out
would you
there.
take that job? I would take. I would thought of what if I was offered to me. So
Yeah.
he has this company called the Boring Company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, the guy who's the CEO for that has been spending a lot of time in the Twitter office continuously. And they're saying he might become the person Elon picks. So he's a Elon loyalist. more than anything
Hmm.
else. So he knows that he'll be an operator who will run things and let him do whatever he wants on the product. So
Gotcha.
it might just be him.
Interesting. In other news, Shark
My
Tank seasons
passions,
2.
my
Yes,
passions.
start.
Shark
Are
Tank
you
season 2 is
excited?
coming back. I'm very excited. I'm waiting. We're recording this literally, I think, what, 1.5 hours before the first episode goes live, and I'm just waiting. 10 p.m. is a little
My
late though, but it's
God.
fine.
No Ashneer. No Ashneer. What do you feel about that?
So if you see the YouTube promos, and I've watched all YouTube promos just to kind of figure out how this new guy is, Amit
Hmm.
Jain of Car Dekho, who they're addressing as car industry ka bacha, Amit Jain, like Sartaj, all those words are being used in standard television
Wow.
format. But a lot of the YouTube comments on those are no Ashneer, it's going to be boring, no
Hmm.
Ashneer, Doglapane, all that stuff. There is, I think, a tiny amount of love thrown towards Ghazal more because people are not commenting about Ghazal not being there this time and less about her not being there this time. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this plays out because it also creates a new dynamic, right? If you look at last time's
Hmm.
dynamic, you had like, I mean, you clearly had Ashneer as one end of the spectrum, and everybody had their roles. But
Yeah.
who plays the asshole is the question, and looks like they're all being very nice this time. So unless this new guy really surprises all of us,
Yeah, it's either going to be the new guy, or I think Aman and Piyush will sort of step into that bad cop role, which I think they do a good job of. Like,
yeah,
they keep the
I
show
agree.
interesting without being, dicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Aman's more Mark Cuban though. If you ask me, Aman is more Mark Cuban in that sense. Piyush could really jump into this one though. I feel Piyush can
Yeah.
actually really play that to the
Yeah, but
T.
Piyush isn't mean. Like he's straight up.
That's true.
He's like even cutthroat's a wrong word. He's just straight up.
Yeah.
That's basically what he is. But he doesn't throw people under the bus. He hasn't made anyone cry. And yeah, hopefully he does not go down the route of Mr. Ashneer Grover.
Doglapan, sab kuch Doglapan. Although his book's doing well though. From what I hear from the publishing side of things, his book's doing really well.
That is not
People are.
unsurprising.
I- whose book didn't do well? The other shark. I forgot her name. The Pharma Queen
Namrata
from
Thapar.
Pune. Namita Thapar.
Nam-
Yes. Her book didn't do as well, but Doglapan's doing really well. They're calling
yeah,
the
you know
truth of
why?
startups.
Yes, because who is reading Doglapan? Jobless, like 18-year-old dude. And I don't mean this in a mean way. I mean, it's literally like
It's
18-year-olds
true.
in college looking
I
for
also feel it's a
inspiration
very
from
so. I'm just adding to what you're saying that I also feel it's a little worrisome when books like this do well and people like
very
this kind of get pushed
worrisome.
up into prominence. It is worrisome, but
Yeah.
that is the world we live in.
Yep. Salman Khan. Salman Khan.
Hey,
But
Salubhai's
in any
birthday
case,
just happened. Yeah, so much fun.
of course,
Shahrukh
do you want to know
Shahrukh
all the
Bhai
other
came and gave
things
him a
he
hug
did?
also. Came and gave
Cute,
him a hug
cute,
also.
cute. Speaking of
What else?
hugs,
Yes.
आप बताओ.
Food and grocery delivery startup Swiggy has ventured into another grocery business called Handpicked. Abhi kya pick kiya hai Swiggy ne? After minis and what did something else before that?
Yeah, Instamart and
Yes.
Minis, obviously. So this I think is interesting. It seems like it's like a plus plus to
Hmm.
Instamart basically, where
Yeah.
Handpicked essentially is a repository of premium products, which will either be imported or locally made and will be listed on their platform. They're piloting in Bangalore, and of course, as Swiggy does, I'm assuming their goal is to scale this up across multiple different geographies irrespective of what way handpick goes. I think the thing that I really like about Swiggy is how mindful they are about their experiments. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It
Everything's
feels
done
like it's
very
part of a plan.
one, it's a part of a plan, and I think the second is they're very good at eliminating things also. They're not necessarily married to things that they build. So if something's not working out there, and we've seen this happen in the past where they had launched that feature, I'm forgetting, but you could buy meals for 99 bucks or 150 bucks, and then they
Hmm.
had their own membership, their
There's that pop
Zomato
thing
Gold
as well,
type
right? That
emoji.
wasn't that called
Swiggy
Swiggy
Pop,
Pop?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they've done a lot, but I think the thing that at least on the outside that I like about their culture is it seems like they have a rigorous culture of experimentation. If
Yeah.
something works, cool, double down. If it doesn't work, peace, brother.
Yeah.
All the best to the Swiggy
And
team
even
on this one.
minis, right? And it's interesting because I saw this tweet by Harnid, who had met briefly at Spotify, has created a. who actually had tweeted the idea for Minis, and then she was brought on to work with the team at Swiggy to build it out, and she's just exited the Swiggy business. So it all started with that tweet. So they all seem to be really listening to an audience. If somebody has an idea, let's experiment and see how that is, but not roll it
Hmm.
out till it's seamlessly a part of the business.
Yeah, though that said, I mean, I don't mean to sound mean, but I don't know what direction Minis is going to go in,
Hmm.
because everyone has attempted this from Google
Yeah.
Pay to PhonePe to Paytm. We know because they used all of our merchants to list on their platform. SMEs is an extremely tough cohort to go after, especially if you're branching out of categories like food and you're going
Hmm.
into many miscellaneous categories, and things that matter in categories outside of food is actually discovery, sorting of supply, which
Hmm.
isn't necessarily solved through the same interface as Mini. So I have
Fair
my
enough.
own. I can literally write a thesis on. But cute, man. Good on them for
Valid
hiring.
points, Milord. Valid points.
Yes. But dude, this news is like huge. Flipkart has rewarded 25,000 past and present employees with a 700 million windfall.
इनका तो
Guess who's
विंटर नहीं
not?
समर आ गया.
Hi, Varun, hi. Guess who's not getting this windfall? Neither Varun nor me. We are not getting even a penny out of the $700 million,
Nothing.
but it doesn't matter because हमारे पास माँ है. Am I right, Varun? Am I right?
Yes, only wind, no fall.
Yes. Cool, cool, cool. But Flipkart's also in the news for another reason, which is
Yeah.
it's completely separated its business operations from PhonePe.
Hmm.
What do you make of this, man? Makes sense.
It makes total sense, right? And if you think about the fact that it started off with the acquisition of PhonePe, and now the fact that it's become as large as it has, it requires it to be a separate business. Makes total sense for them to do. I think it also kind of, if I've read right, it allows PhonePe to do a lot more pieces and kind of scale up, revenue streams and different aspects as well, because they'll break up from operations from Flipkart. So I think it's good for both PhonePe and Flipkart in the long term.
Yeah.
Great for shareholders.
Hundo. And what else, my friend?
What else? Luxury hair extensions and wig brand Hair Originals secured $1.25 million from Anicut Capital, Kesh Kala Family Office. So cute. Kesh Kala Family Office investing into Hair Originals. I think it's amazing, right? It's so much fun. But anyway,
Yes.
Jito,
What
I
great
know it.
insights you have provided on that title. But
um,
this space is
uh,
interesting,
yeah.
right?
And also, they were funded in. Were they funded, or
Shark
they
Tank.
were in Shark Tank season one? But I
You
forgot
are
if they actually
correct.
got money or not. They got money
Yeah, they
कि
did get
रिजेक्ट
money
कर
from
दिया.
everyone.
वाओ, अमेजिंग. सी शार्क
Yeah.
टैंक के टाइम पे शार्क टैंक का न्यूज़ क्या चल रहा है आजकल.
Wow. No, but this is pretty cool. I
Hmm.
first and foremost didn't realize how large a market this is
Yeah.
up until I started, digging into use cases, so on and so forth. Second, obviously, one would think that the use case of India in general, as we've seen, is a hair conscious country.
Yeah.
Literally, one of the largest categories is hair growth, which
Yeah.
we've seen happen, through vitamin supplements and even those offline. I'm sure, for those of you guys who still get Times of India, you open the third page and it'll be some hair growth renewal, outlet that's opened up 500 meters away from you. So this
Hmm.
category is super interesting, and they seem to be obviously productizing and standardizing it more than anything else. Do you have any
And
insights on the hair
also, if
originals
you,
business?
also if you look at the hair extensions and entire, like, even look at wigs, etc., right?
Yeah,
A large part of the global, I would say, the hair follicles actually have been coming from India from a long time. I
correct.
mean, it even goes back, like, look at a place like Tirupati, where the number of heads that are, like, shaved all the time, all that actually goes into global markets, etc. But you not
Hmm.
heard of a singular brand scaling up to this level. So it's
Yeah,
interesting opportunity. Like, no one's actually been able to, like you said, like, standardize it and make it a lot more structured in this way.
yeah,
So it's,
yeah.
and I think people are wearing it a lot more as well. Like, I'm seeing a lot of indie brands, like a couple of influencers I was noticing have started their own hair extensions companies and were pushing it out. I think Parul Gulati is this influencer who is pushing out her own
Correct.
brand of hair extensions and a few others at a
Correct.
smaller
Yeah.
level. So it's interesting that this is kind of happening a lot more.
Yeah, and also, for more actual issues, so not just vanity issues. We know things like alopecia, etc.
Yeah.
Companies like this can be extremely valuable. But
Yeah.
moving on to the next, what else?
Netflix is buying a former US Army base in New Jersey and spending more than $900 million on this studio project. It's a very interesting move. In many ways, they're moving towards what Hollywood studios have done for a long, long time. It's really build out huge production facilities. This will actually be one of the largest production facilities in the world. Um,
Wow, go
yeah,
Netflix.
yeah, so if you look at that way, it's about they're going to spend $850 million. Everything from what 12 sound stages, production spaces. You can really kind of scale up and produce end to end within a studio, and that's actually something which Hollywood studios, especially in India, hasn't happened as much. It's very prevalent in the south. If you go to like Hyderabad and you see Ramoji Film City, you can walk into Ramoji Film City and come out with an entire with the actual movie because everything you need you can shoot inside, and do post and do VFX and everything else. So for a Netflix, it's a great way to also standardize cost because they're spending so
Yeah.
much money on content. You can say, okay, you're going to use these studio spaces. You are going to, look at these crews to use for, let's say, post production, etc. So makes sense for them to do it. And the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yes, Queen. And speaking of things that are staying the same, people continue quitting Zomato. Zomato co founder and CTO Gunjan Patidar has quit in the latest top level exit from the firm. Patidar's exit comes weeks after co founder Mohit Gupta and also another key member, Rahul Ganju, sort of left Zomato. What do you think is happening over here? People have made their big bucks and are piecing out.
Yeah, I think it looks like that, but it's why it's happening now is actually been my question. Like, what is happening in the last few? It's been the last few months, right? When you had so many people kind of like just exit.
Hmm. A bunch, like I said, like literally, like there's
Apart from
three,
the
four three, four big names that have
No, no.
moved out.
I'm saying apart from the fact that obviously their stock has done the way it has, their
Hmm.
IPO is obviously what it is. But I'm just trying to understand what has specifically gone on within Zomato, apart from the fact that maybe just made money and leaving, like you said. But is there
Yeah.
something else cooking there, which we don't know about?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I There also seems to be this like bromance brewing in between Albinder from Blinkit and Dipinder from Zomato, who obviously are friends from
What's a
before or
love?
whatever else.
What's a love?
The logical thing would be consolidation of both the management teams. Blinkit in
Hmm.
any case was a um, we've been discussing this endlessly, right? It doesn't
Hmm.
warrant a separate app. It's a feature within Zomato. There's no reason for it to really exist externally. So does this mean better, brighter opportunities for top management at Blinkit, perhaps?
Hmm.
Is this just a natural churn because food delivery is a very tough business? You know what I mean? I can
Hmm.
totally imagine people being burnt out after years and years of building this category, pretty much ground up. And God knows, and Dipinder Goyal's been pretty open about how stressful the past couple of years at Zomato have been. Irrespective of what's happening, I wish them all the best, man. Zomato's got great talent, and any company catching on to them next will be on
Yeah.
to great things, I suppose. Look at me being
Yes.
optimistic in 2023. What has happened? I am
Kya
like
ho gaya?
really looking at, glasses half full and not half empty. Transform person I am. But last couple of stories before we get into our main section. Wake up, Varun, wake up. What is
I'm
next?
Ankur Warikoo made 27 crores of revenue this year. Well done for
Wow.
Warikoo. 100% bootstrapped, about 150% up from last year. Immensely profitable. Team of 9 people in 3 years. So well done. And I don't know if you read the Twitter thread which he put out with the
I
with
did.
this, and I thought it was
Exceptional.
very well articulated. But if you look at the tonality, it's gone very startup like from being
Hmm.
creator like, which is he's anyway always spoken about this as a startup. He's never called this just him being a creator. He's always spoken about I'm build this is my startup, but I want to bootstrap it. I don't want to take venture funding.
Yeah.
He's also um, conspicuously not no longer talking about not wanting to make this a massive business.
Hmm.
There was a period in between where you were saying my aspiration is not to build like a unicorn, etc. But I think the language is becoming a little bit more in not unicorn level, but like still saying scalable level.
Yeah.
So but I think it's a great way to also show which parts of his business have been getting him money, how he spends the money as well. how he
So
gives a
give this
profit share
plate,
to his
give our
employees.
listeners a TLDR. Like, what are his largest revenue drivers?
The largest revenue drivers actually are brand deals and speaking gigs when you look at it
Mm.
from an individual capacity. Because he's always gotten the speaking gig was always his thing, right? Even before the pandemic,
Yeah.
before he kind of blew up on social as well. And so that's scaled up for him even a lot more as obviously numbers would have gone up.
Hmm.
On the education side, which is the courses side, a large amount of the money being made is also being spent on ads, on performance. So while that is a significant amount of money, it's still a large amount of money that's going back into pushing those out there.
Yeah.
And he's also publicly spoken about the fact that what he's trying to do is kind of transfer trust, because it can't just be
Yeah.
him doing all the courses while right now it's him doing all the courses. The YouTube course he's launched is largely taught by his team, so it's not him doing it but them talking about it. But how do you kind of scale that up even further is the question. But it's I mean it's a fabulous model for anyone to look at and say, okay, and the fact that he's open about sharing all schematics, how it's structured, how he spends his time, what he invests into is great.
I think, when you were talking about his revenue models, rather actually his platform Webveda, it reminded me of who's that guy? Nussair. What was it called? What is his
No,
startup
sir,
called?
Yasin,
The
Nas
NAS
Academy.
Academy. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
NAS Academy. Yeah. What's
so
the difference in between the two?
wherein,
Or rather, what Webveda can become?
so Nas Academy, I also still don't know how well it's been doing. Nas Academy was more about teaching creators different aspects of being creators. While I think there's
Yeah.
one entrepreneurial course which Ritesh Agarwal teaches, but apart from that, I think
Yeah.
largely all the courses are very creative focused.
Hmm.
Ankur's courses are how to build your
Become
startup,
life ready. Yeah.
startup, time management. I think there's speaking, like public speaking, and YouTube are the four courses
Correct.
he has. I think he has one more kind of coming up soon, if I remember right. So he's still focused on a broader, like there's person development, but yeah, there's also like technical stuff there. The technical ones are obviously lot more expensive. Um, so it's still in a different scale of market. I would actually
Hmm.
compare him a lot more to, let's say, someone like a Simon Sinek. Well, Simon Sinek's a
Got
lot
it.
more business oriented. Eventually, how Simon Sinek scaled up his business was to really bring in experts. And while he teaches some of the courses, he has specific people who are teaching specific aspects of how to work with teams, etc. Obviously, he's a lot more business focused in his courses. But I think Ankur's given a great template. Also, if he's saying he doesn't want to necessarily make this at scale, which is what he's always said before this thread,
Yeah.
it's a great business to run. But if you want to kind of scale this to a certain level and make it long term, it will
Hmm.
have to be more than just him. And therein lies the most interesting piece to look at. How does he do that?
Yes, Queen. And with that, we're 26 minutes into our never
To
ending
our
introduction. What are we
yes, as
going to talk
always.
about today?
We're going to discuss the MamaEarth IPO. And it's interesting, just some of the threads that have come out on it. I don't know if you read that thread. We'll discuss that
Oh,
thread. If
God.
someone who
Vicious threads. Vicious
vicious threads
threads.
and analyzing their prospectus. We're going to talk about sports streaming. Amazon Prime is supposedly getting into the streaming business a lot more with a separate app for sports. Going to dig into that entire aspect of it. And we'll just chat about random things in between. But all of that only after this break, because 23 चालू हो चुका है पर हम लोगों ने सिर्फ एक बार पानी पिया है. And there was silence.
Just can't with the jokes in the evening.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where I was just talking about being poked by needles by physiotherapists.
Lovely. One
Yes,
more thing that we get to find out about Mr. Varun Dugirala today.
I like getting poked by needles. Not really, but nevertheless,
You sound
um,
like a heroin addict.
no, not those kind of
Varun.
needles.
Only the
No,
acupuncture kind of needles. But
yes,
okay, focus. What are we
focus,
talking about? The
focus.
MamaEarth
Uh,
IPO.
yes, the MamaEarth. I mean, I found it surprising that they filed for the IPO, because I felt everyone's kind of running away right now from filing for it. But the fact that they went towards it is interesting in its case. Also, the valuation for me was like a little wow. That's like pushing for us slightly. high valuation, to put it
What do you
mildly.
think like what threw you off? So let's give our listeners a TLDR. So they're essentially asking for a $3 billion valuation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what threw you off about $3 billion of a valuation, given they're profitable, unlike a bunch of other companies that,
They just
have been
became
listed?
profitable.
Hanji,
Right, they
correct.
just
Six
became
months ago.
profitable 6 months ago, which for me is number one. Okay, one second, and secondly, there was a very interesting Twitter thread on this, and I think the person, while he was being vicious, still being clear about certain points, still largely dependent on Amazon to sell.
Hmm.
Still, I mean, I think now they're saying 25-30% is offline for them, but the revenue they're getting actually from offline is not as much comparable to what you get on Amazon. So
Hmm.
you're a company which largely sells on Amazon. You have just become profitable. I just think the value is too high. Like, would you? I mean, and also, are you seeing this as a brand that is at that value? I would actually put it like far lower than that.
Hmm. So, couple of things. One, I don't buy this like Amazon as a source of revenue point fully, because then by that logic no one should be both to should never IPO then,
Hmm.
because all of these D2C brands at some level are highly and heavily dependent on Amazon, Nykaa, Flipkart, and even from a retail channel perspective, Sugar Cosmetics, for example, can still have its own,
Yeah.
cosmetic stores, kiosks and the likes, but Boat and the likes can't, because they'll never have enough SKUs to justify that kind of offline expense. So even in offline, they end up selling through the Chromas, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the world, right? So I think this argument that there is revenue dependency on Amazon, Nykaa, FK plus plus, while I buy it, I think by that logic, literally no D2C brand should ever raise money, because in India the D2C story is not actually direct to consumer. It's direct to consumer through Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, and 20 other marketplaces. So I think for me that may not be a reason why I would have a red flag. I think for me the red flags would, number one, be just the valuation, which
Hmm.
you also alluded to, right? Like $3
Yeah.
billion dollars, dude. Nika's market cap right now is 5 billion.
Exactly.
Paytm is at that much, and Paytm and Nykaa and even that third one, Zomato. How could I forget? They are playing in much larger markets than Mamaearth as a standalone consumer brand is. And this, you know what I mean? Like comparison to HUL and all is a little absurd, because you're just like, dude, that business was built on proprietary distribution versus
And none
yours.
of the other
But
brands
come
are
in.
as large, and none of the other brands are as large to come to this kind of a value. And also, if you look at it, does Mamaearth have that kind of brand recall to actually
Hmm.
ask for this kind of a value? Because I feel that while the mother brand has some form of recognition, if you
Yeah,
actually look at it beyond that for some of the others, it's not like they're like big names that you know, and if you are kind of pitching yourself almost equal or slightly lower than what a Nike etc are, you got to have that level of scale beyond seeming like a one brand piece. Like I would honestly look at Sugar and say Sugar can actually kind of, I would still look at Sugar very differently from Mamaearth. Because Sugar, I think, has really cracked how to do this mix of offline, online, and really build a robust
100%.
business. I would look at them as a more solid business. Mamaearth for me also, and maybe I'm slightly biased because I don't believe the products are as good. Um, and when the products aren't as good in the long term, that kind of does catch up.
Yeah.
Is what I've always kind of felt whenever I've used a Mamaearth product versus Sugar or anybody
So
else.
yeah, and to the point that you made, I think the other thing also is, at the end of the day, Zomato, Nykaa, Paytm are technology businesses.
Yeah,
Mamaearth cannot say that for itself. They can
yeah,
command high multiples on profit or lack thereof,
yeah.
because technology companies can. A product company cannot. And
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
look at what's
14
happened,
crore profit. 14 crore profit asking for this much is like a 1714x, which is
yeah, and
what?
I think unfortunately for them, a lot of Twitter quote unquote investors or retail investors have now become smarter about how to evaluate or how to look at companies. I
Hmm.
think Zomato, Paytm, and Nykaa I wouldn't say got lucky, because they're all playing in very large markets, and if they play their cards right, like Paytm seems to have really got its shit together, they can
Yeah.
become huge businesses, especially in a country like India. But I think when they IPO, there was still some amount of novelty associated with a retail investor's understanding of numbers. But now, because there's so much chatter, jibber jabber about startups and valuations, and how do you evaluate profitability, EBITDA, this, that, and the other. Mama, it's not going to be able to sail through this, and technically not Mama, it's technically Honasa Private Limited. They're not going to be able to sail through this without consumers asking questions the same way you and I are on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Did you also see one thing? They pay 70
What?
crores in salaries. 70
What?
crores. Yeah. 70
That's
crores in
insane.
salary. And that is a red flag if there ever was a red flag. 70 crores in salaries. And they have 140 crores in receivables from trade.
Yeah.
Red
I
flag, red
mean,
flag, red flag.
I can't comment on the latter because I don't know what industry benchmarks are. But if I just had to look at it from like a first principles way, right? My first principles approach would be that you can't get tech multiples. You're going to get consumer product multiples.
Exactly.
Look at what's happened to companies in the US that have even attempted, whether it's a Casper or Warby Parker, Honest Beauty, any of these other guys. They have all had to sort of temper down their expectations and come down to planet Earth with respect to how they're touting their businesses. That said, I don't know, man. Like I think irrespective of where their IPO goes, I feel
Yeah.
like all of these things are stepping stones in the ecosystem becoming much more mature. The
Yeah.
ecosystem realizing what exits actually look like or don't look like, and more people understanding what the value of a company truly is or isn't.
Hmm.
So again, I feel like a totally transformed human. I don't know why I'm always like, I don't know why I'm looking at things so positively. Maybe just the start of
and
the
I,
year.
and I am being the person saying Dogla bun. Yeah, over here.
Yes, oh my
Which,
god.
by the way, which
Anup.
one of my favorite
Yeah.
tweets about this whole thing, as soon as the prospectus came out, is someone said waiting for
Hmm.
Ashneer Grover to comment on the MamaEarth prospectus.
By the way, did Ashneer and Ghazal ever like squabble on
I
Shark
don't
Tank?
remember. Don't remember. Actually, Ghazal wasn't around as much as some of the other sharks in the last season, which is
Acha.
also one of the reasons why she was, I think, one of the least prominent ones because she was not there as often. And she didn't really
Okay.
stand out compared to many of those. So I don't remember. I think everybody squabbled with him at some point of time, but I
Huh.
don't really remember. Although Shilpa Shetty has a 1.34% stake in MamaEarth, which will be worth 324
It.
crores if it lists at 3 billion.
Yes, dude, crazy.
Raj
I don't know
Kundra
where you're
can take
getting
that
these
mask
numbers
off.
from. Oh my god, and come
It's
back
called
out in
Twitter.
public.
I'm finding this on Twitter.
Acha, I had seen 80 crore somewhere. I had seen her 25 lakh investment will become a 80 crore ROI. No, but if this goes anywhere, like
Hmm.
even if their IPO like, is semi successful, let's obviously hope it's
Yeah.
very successful because every entrepreneur deserves a payday. But there are a bunch of people who will win big time, man. Like Fireside in Ventures, wow,
Yeah.
what a wow. Stellaris,
Yes.
Snapdeal co-founders Kunal Behl and Rohit Bansal, who came in very, very, very early. And I think there's a gentleman from Marico or the Marico family office that also, had put money into MamaEarth. But lots of general winners. I want to end at one point, at least at my end. I don't know if you saw this, but apparently the CEO Varun Alag owns 34.3% of the startup, while co-founder Ghazal Alag owns only
3%.
3.23%
Hmm.
of Mama slash Honasa, which I found to be interesting, given I was under the assumption that it was Ghazal's idea and this,
What
that,
is
and the
wrong
other.
with you?
But
You're using words like interesting when you're looking at this kind of equity share. I'm just like, what has happened to you today? Where is your wine and where is my tequila? Is what I want to say.
oh my god, no, dude, I have like made a decision to be less obnoxious this year. Which, let's see how long it lasts. I usually start every year this way,
Excuse me,
and
the
then by
show will
like the
not
second
survive if
week.
you are not obnoxious enough. I'll have to become Ashneer Grover here.
My God, do it, Varun, do it. Let's switch roles this year. But basically, that is my tippany for this Mama Earth story. And with that, I rest my non existent case.
Fair enough. We're moving on to the next story. Actually, wait, do we go for a break? We've had a very long story, so maybe we can just go for a break. Give some ad time to IVM as well. What do you say, Jalasmi?
She
Wow,
says
Jalasmi says
yes.
yes. Lots of ads in Think Fast. Don't know where the money is coming from, but fair enough. Uh, I, I have really come to 23 by behaving like a biatch, but nevertheless, we shall see you guys on the other side of this break.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. Here's wishing you all a happy new year. As we step in the brand new year 2023, here's introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, which gives you early access to Paisa Vaisa episodes 3 days before release, ad-free content, bonus content, and access to full episode archives. So get your yearly membership today for only rupees 699. Log on to club.ivmpodcast.com/paisavaisa. New episodes are out every Monday. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by sports anchor and author Nishat Pai Vaidya to talk about the greatest sporting moments from 2022. On Anish Thing, Anish is joined by Jesse and Gabriel, prominent names from Asia bar landscape, and Somana Mutana, co-founder and CEO of the Soul Company. They dish out a long list of 20 best bars in Asia, from Bali to Gurgaon, Hanoi to Hong Kong, and everything about spirits. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is joined by Sangeeta Iyer, nutritionist and founder of a health service called Rewrite Your Story. She shares how animal-based diet changed her life. And on Pulyabazi, Saurabh, Khyati and Pranay revisit the best episode of 2022 and predict the trends of 2023. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, please spread the word. Tell your friends and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You can also find our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Cap Gemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where we're talking about not MamaEarth, but Amazon Prime and many other. Actually, have you seen any sports tournaments on streaming networks? I know you saw the Football World Cup, Suchita. And how did you
Yes,
find that experience? I mean, for someone who I know you don't watch as much sport,
I
do you
don't.
watch
That
any
is
sport?
a correct observation.
And how was that experience for you, considering everybody watched it on streaming?
Pretty
Did you feel
flawless,
like,
dude.
yeah?
Pretty flawless, given it was the finals and given that there was a lot of excitement around the finals because, it was like France versus Portugal. Yeah, cool. I got that right. I was second
Portugal?
guessing myself. Who was
Final
it?
is not Portugal.
Oh shit, who was it?
Argentina.
Argentina.
You say France is Portugal and you commented yourself that it was France is Portugal. Messi के जगह पे रोनाल्डो को मिलता तो दुनिया क्या बदल
Whoops.
जाता. Vishnu is
Whoops.
giving us sad
Guys,
emojis here in the chat.
this is
You saw the finals.
this I did. I forgot, yaar. Sab ek
Maybe
hi
you
cheez
saw
hai.
the
What do
replay
I?
of the semi-final or quarter-final, wherever
No, I
wherever
didn't. No, I
Portugal
didn't.
lost.
We will edit this out. We will edit this out.
No
In my
chance. We will leave
defense,
this
I
in.
really do not watch football or soccer or whatever you call it
Vishnu
these
has said
days.
there's no way this getting
No,
edited out. He's leaving this in here. Um,
okay,
but
France versus
but
Messi, which is
France
exactly
versus
what it
Messi.
was.
No, Mbappe versus
Argentina.
Argentina. Mbappe versus
Mbappe
Argentina. Sorry.
versus Messi. No, but getting to your question without my little
Yes.
Alia Bhatt moment right there. What I
So
was saying was it was
basically,
actually pretty flawless.
yeah, and the thing is, if you check it on the app, you could actually do the switch between cameras, etc. Also, really well. Obviously, day
Hmm.
one they had some glitches, which is I would believe very normal
Normal.
for any platform to kind of do that. But the overall experience was great, and if you look at it over time, sports, which is always a very television focused thing, like people still like. I remember, the only reason I have a Tata Sky connection beyond the internet is to just watch HD sports whenever I do watch something, which I haven't gone to in a while, which is I don't have that
Hmm.
anymore. Because everybody's moved to watching sports on streaming, but globally a lot of these were either TV deals but never were digital only deals, right? So if you look at what Jio's done with taking on the IPL rights, it's one of the
Yeah.
first times that's happened. um, Amazon has done this in a few markets. So Amazon had the India New Zealand series, which happened right after the T20 World Cup, which came on Amazon Prime. Again, one of the first times, apart from I think they had women's cricket and a few other football tournaments on it. But like this is like, obviously a lot more scale because more people watch it on it.
Yeah.
And now if and this news is across the board, it's on TechCrunch, on everywhere else, saying that Amazon's planning to launch a separate app. It's going to be Amazon Prime Sports, and they're going to go really after all the sports pieces to really focus on live sports and sports as a standalone platform.
Yeah.
And I feel that's super interesting because this is the one area where TV always had a foot in. Either TV streaming network, but it was never only streaming. You also hearing news of YouTube really bidding for the NFL in the US, and to really get the rights for that. And slowly but surely, you're seeing streaming really saying, "This is mine now." It doesn't have to be TV plus in that sense of the word for me. And
Hmm.
it might actually be a very interesting space to look at to see how sports evolves, especially, and I'll get into the NBA because it's a great example of how it can really evolve a sport,
Yeah.
how sports evolves when streaming goes on to a digital platform.
So I have two follow-up questions for you over there.
Hmm.
One is this coming from a place of there are too many players in the streaming space, and now you need to pick up the next card that you can to acquire more consumers or continue to be relevant to your existing consumers? Is that it, or is it, led by, for example, factors like time spent is reducing because consumers are also now spending time on platforms like TikTok plus plus plus. Um, Basically, my question to you is it more fearing of competition, hence let's try land grab in whatever arenas are left, or is it consumers themselves are getting disinterested from platforms and hence the need to do this?
It's a mixture, but I feel in many ways what's happened is that if you look at streaming focused a lot more on the fiction parts and they've really dug into that part of it and done as much as they can there. Feels
Yeah.
sports something no one's really been able to do because the amount of money you have to pay for rights is very high. And you
Hmm.
finally have platforms saying, one second, maybe it'll be worth it. Because if you look at what Hotstar was able to do, and
Hmm.
everyone's going to look at what happens to Hotstar this year because they don't have the IPL. The amount of
Hmm.
watch time, the amount of eyeballs that come onto that platform just because of one tournament is immense, right? There are like crores and crores of people watching it at a singular point of time.
Hmm.
And I remember a while back we had a couple of people on Advertising is Dead who worked with Star Sports, not even with the Hotstar team, who spoke about that this is not the highest amount of time spent per individual without switching is
Yeah.
the IPL. And you're gonna take that across the world. And what people haven't done is figure out a way to make it a lot more interactive, make it more interesting. Hotstar did a lot of the stuff right from the tech back end of things. Geo seems to have gotten it right there. The NBA is an interesting example of the sport itself building its own platform, right?
Hmm.
The NBA on the NBA app, if you have I think it's called the season pass, if I remember right, the term gives you so much more than just the sport
Yeah.
that people literally like they swear by it and don't even go towards. So I feel this is a great way for people to build more watch time, more ad revenue, especially after everyone's going after ads now.
Yeah.
But apart from paying for the rights, you then have the spectacle to itself. You have a lot more control. And
Yeah.
television is, let's be honest, losing its
Sheen.
sheen in more ways than
I mean,
one.
television isn't cable television providers are, like TV
Yeah,
is literally that, right? It's like a
yeah,
medium.
yeah.
But got it. Yeah, your
So TV in
traditional
India is the
networks
most
are.
interesting one compared to the States,
Hmm.
where I think in the States only the Western markets where streaming is still fighting against television. In India,
Hmm.
most streaming is owned by television.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So I feel that's the thing to look at from the Indian market is that it's always been that way, but now you're looking at standalone. So this year's IPL is going to be the most interesting one to look at because
Hmm.
TV is going to be on Star Sports, but digital is going to be on Geo, and
Yeah.
I strongly believe that the Geo one's going to do well. Also, because a lot of the team that was at Star Sports working on the IPL have moved to Geo. They literally like a lot of them jumped ship to this side of things. And I feel it's really going to bring about a way to say, can you create a truly digital experience for sport? It's a lot more
Hmm.
immersive. Again, camera switching between pieces. Can you get a lot more pieces in there? And you're like, okay, I would not go back to TV after this. Is where it will kind of lead.
And what do you think this does to a bunch of the upstarts? Like Sony Live
Hmm.
and these other smaller ones, like HBO Max had planned a full-fledged launch in India. I think they shelved that along with
Yeah.
their, more like American-based consolidation of shows, this, that, and the other. So what do you think happens to the smaller guys?
So Sony Live has actually smartly, I mean, after they lost the IPL rights, Sony they really focused on Sony Live as a platform. There are a lot of great shows over there. They won't be able to afford the kind of monies that are required for this. I think it'll still be a Geo versus Disney game in that sense of the word.
Yeah.
But I think in the long term, a lot of the smaller leagues are kind of going to this, right? So, and where even something like the cricket is kind of going, there are more and more leagues coming up in cricket across the world, right? I mean, South Africa has a league right now where players are actually, I think they're not even signing contracts. I forget if it's New Zealand or South Africa, where players are actually not signing contracts with the national cricket league, federation, so they can play in leagues across the world. So cricket's going towards club culture. Suddenly you'll have players playing across the world, and all of that is great for streaming. Everything's going to be T20. And if
Yeah.
you look at it from that sense, what those leagues get streamed on Sony Live, some of the others, because they can afford to get that in, but you still have players everyone knows. So I feel that's what they look to acquire in the sports space, versus something like Geo will just go after the big pieces.
Interesting. Look at me learning something new from you on every episode.
Yes, and what I feel is the most fun thing to do, however, is the fact that as long as the fan experience is great, everyone's figured out streaming to a large extent. I have not heard anyone bitch about how bad a platform's interface is in a while, except
Yeah.
for one recently. I don't think it was Geo or something else, but
Hotstar.
everyone's figured out the base stack out, which is,
Yeah.
thank God it was time. That was the biggest issue, right? People couldn't figure the stack out. I think they figured it
But
out finally.
now things get interesting.
Yeah.
Basically, like if your underlying technology is all the same, then you essentially win on programming and customer experience.
Yeah, yeah. And what you can finally do, and you've already seen that happen, is the more live space moves digital, live sports, the more the surround content kind of scales up as well. So the amount of, if you thought there was already a lot of surround around sports, you could have so much more happening in the days to come.
Got it.
Kya baat
Look at
hai,
you
came with
schooling me.
information.
Oh my God.
Came with information.
Mind
Is it time for
blown.
another break? इतना ज्ञान बांटा कि थोड़ा break लेना चाहिए. Again, one more sip of water. Chalo, we have had a long negotiation which has been cut off from this edit, but we shall see you guys on the other side of this break, where we will go and talk about recommendations. Welcome back to Think Fast, where it is recommendations time. I actually was thinking about what to recommend, but I saw a really nice comedy special, and then that's what I'm going to recommend. If you haven't seen Trevor Noah's latest comedy special on Netflix, you should watch it. It's a lot of fun. I never realized the number of accents and voices he could actually do. It is supremely funny, but also like genuine like talent in just like doing voices.
Trevor Noah is a man of many skills. He's also very attractive. Let's not forget.
Guess his favorite food in the world?
Indian.
Yes.
That was
He loves.
unsurprising, Varun. That was unsurprising. You let me tee that off as
Yes.
swiftly as is possible. My
Yes.
recommendation is also going to be a TV show, but I'm also very excited to inform our dear listeners, not that any of them give a shit, but my book club is resurrecting itself.
Well done.
Yeah, so we guys obviously had a book club where we met once a month, and we took a little break from each other last year because all of us had way too much work going on. But we're resurrecting that. So I'm reading the book by Biz Stone, his autobiography type thingamajig on how he built Twitter. I will let you know if I recommend that book or not, maybe in the next episode. But my recommendation for this week is this excellent mini series called Fleischman is in Trouble. It's on Disney Plus Hotstar, and it's basically like an 8-part episode on relationships, love, this, that, and the other, breaking down, rebuilding yourself. It's this whole thing. Claire Danes has knocked it out of the goddamn park. She is so good in this show. It is unbelievable. And there's that, what's his name? Jesse
Penguin.
Eisenberg. No,
Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg. Who's in the show as well. But yeah, both Jesse Eisenberg and Claire Danes have crushed it. So if you guys are in the mood for a nice heartwarming, a love romance, it's not cheesy. It's not like Love Actually. It's a kick-ass show, and has become very popular in the US.
But why are you not doing Doglapan for your first book of your book club? That would be a
Oh,
dhamakedar start to your
God.
book club.
I would cancel my book club. I would literally exit my own book club. That's what would happen if
I shall
Doglapan
come
was
back
a
next
book.
week with my review of week 1 of Shark Tank.
Please do. And I
Yes, I
shall come
shall.
back next week, hopefully a little bit more obnoxious than I was today. And I will
Yes.
remember who played in the
We
finals.
shall send some alcohol
Argentina,
your way
France.
otherwise.
Yes, or coffee, and resurrect the spirit.
I have started to drink kombucha. It has become a new interesting addition to my drinking
Oh my
methods.
God, you will get like yeast infections in your gut and you'll be farting 24/7.
Only 150 ml a day is what I was told.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, dude, like different guts react to it very differently. I
Let's
did
see
not
what
have the best
happens.
reaction. Yes, tell
Thankfully, we record
us.
online, so you don't have to worry about that.
I will message Pooja and ask her how bad your room smells. But in any
Yes.
case, on that lovely note, Happy New Year,
Yes.
ladies and gents. Thank you for tuning in all of last year and continue tuning in this year. And with
Shabak khair.
that,
Shabak khair.
Khuda Hafiz.
Yes.
Toodles.
And we shall see you guys next week on Fast Think. Sorry, Think Fast. Whatever it is.
There you
We
go
will be
with your
back.
jokes again. Bye,
Yes.
Varun.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Toodles.